G'day everybody, Dougville here. Welcome to a TvZ cast. It is going to be on Frost LE. Should be a whole lot of fun, as you can see. I'm sure you can tell from the YouTube timeline there. It is a very long game, and hope you've got your Gatorade prepared and a jug of water like I have. I'm sure if you watch my stream, you know the jug of water I'm talking about, because it is a bit of a long one. We've got a very long TvZ matchup today. It is taken from the, actually a clan war, as you can see these guys just sort of talking about teams and things like that. It's from a clan war that happened last week. I thought I'd cast this one just because it is a bit of an interesting game featuring a couple of the young players from the C region who have been performing quite nicely overseas, and also, well, not being overseas, but doing quite well on NA and the Korean server as well. Down at the bottom right hand side is our yellow Terran player here for Team FRAYA Academy. It is Kreamy. Now Kreamy also plays for the Metagame Gods team as well. So that's why he and his opponent up at the top left hand side here, we're just talking about that, because here representing, well, in this particular situation he's representing the clan MGG, but he's also a part of the TtSEED team. It is MightyKiwi. Now, as I was saying, this was part of a clan war, so these two were having a meetup here, and if I remember correctly, this was game number 3 in a best of 9, I think, and a couple of the FRAYA Academy guys did quite well at the start. I believe it was Alpha who got 2 kills right at the start and then came up against MightyKiwi and lost game number 3. So that's right, sorry, this is game number 4. So MightyKiwi has taken one player out, and now he's going to look to try and take his, see if he can get some vengeance for the MGG team against Kreamy here. So these two players, we'll talk about their particular play styles. We'll also talk about how it interacts with the map as well. Just before we do get into it, of course, please do make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube channel here, and also over on Twitch and Facebook as well. I've got links for all of that stuff in just in the description and whatnot, so you guys can head over and see what I am up to. Doing a lot of casting these days of StarCraft 2. We get you know, some gameplay of Dota 2 and SC2, and also Natural Selection 2, which has been a whole bunch of fun lately. Been competing in a Natural Selection tournament, which has been really cool. But anyway, yeah, please do make sure you have subscribed to all of that stuff. Well, let's talk about our players. Both of these players in the C region have a little bit of a reputation for their particular stylistic kind of play. So for our yellow Terran Kreamy, he's known as a bit of a mech player. He does love his tanks and his Thors and his Hellbats and mines and all sorts of cool mech-related stuff. So a lot of the time when people come up against Kreamy, of course, you do try and you can try and metagame mech players a bit by either, you know, taking advantage of it economically by really extending your economy really quickly to try and, you know, get ahead of the mech player, so you can be a little bit more efficient with all of your you know, all of your units and all of that sort of economic side of things. Or you can try and just metagame them and play out a really aggressive kind of style that's very mobile and tries to take advantage of how slow mech can be. So Kreamy has to deal with these kinds of things from time to time, and we'll see what he's going to do here against his opponent, who is a very good Zerg player. Of course, everyone will know MightyKiwi is headed over to America to sit around in the Root Gaming house and not eat chilies. And if you're not I'm sure what I'm talking about, go over on the Root Gaming YouTube and have a look at that. But MightyKiwi is a really good Zerg player who's been showing his stuff over in the TtSEED team. It does have, as I said, a little bit of a reputation as being someone who loves a little bit of early pool action. Now, we haven't had any of that here today, but I'm sure that's because he knows it's going to be a little bit difficult to early pool a Terran player, especially on this very large map. Now, Frost, of course, is an extremely large map. Not as big as Altazim Stronghold, of course, everybody's favorite map, but it definitely does get a little bit close to it. I believe Altazim is 192 by 192, and this is 180, I think. So it's very close to the same size, but just a little bit off. But anyway, So it is a little bit difficult to try and kill off a Terran player early on this particular map, but it looks like Kreamy is going to be opening us up with what I would assume is going to be Cloaked Banshees in a second here. There is the Cloak, there is a Banshee. There's a few Hellions also on their way across the map as well, while he picks up his Natural Expand. So just very normal sort of stuff coming out from Kreamy at the moment. Just looking to establish a little bit of map presence early on in the game. Very similar to I guess the pioneered style by MVP back in Wings of Liberty, where you would get out some Hellions, get them across the map, just try and lock down those Zerglings so that they cannot get as much map vision, maybe kill off a Queen or two, but also just make some space so that the first or second Banshee that come along, they are able to try and hunt down any drones or possibly even kill off a third base. Now, it normally is a little bit... it's not easy to kill off that third hatchery that goes up over there. Now, MightyKiwi does have... How many queens have we got? We've got 4 queens in total. So he is going to send 2 across towards the third base. It looks as if he's just a little bit worried. Wants to make sure there's a little bit more creep spread coming across. Goes for the surround. It looks like there are a few too many Hellions. They use the high ground there and do that quite well. Trying to split up some of the links to engage in a little bit of a better surround. But Kreamy is able to dispose of all of those links. And now the queens are in a lot of trouble. Just microing back some of those Hellions. Very nicely done by Kreamy. And this has exposed a very large hole here. This means that there is virtually no protection coming down. No queens and nothing here to sort of save this base. So we may see this base go down, in fact, because it... And that's something which is a little bit rare to see. Like, back in the days when this particular build first came about, you did see Zerg players losing their third base, but normally once you have, you know, a couple of extra queens out to come and defend, you are able to hold it all back. But Kreamy is coming along, and he is, looks like he is going to kill off this hatchery here with this one Banshee. She's got, they do have cloaks, so that is all prepared there for Kreamy if he does need to switch over into invisible mode. But looks like with the second Banshee coming along, he's quite content to just hold the center Zelmug or Watchtower here and just sort of get all those reinforcements together. So we did lose some of the Hellions, but we did keep the Reapers and the Banshees alive for now. So it looks as if MightyKiwi is going to try and do a little bit of an aggressive opening here in this game. He's sort of very, you know, just casually heading down to retake that third base right now. The Roaches are going to dispose of the destructible rocks here on the big ramp. Wants to make some more space so that he can try and, you know, so that he doesn't get stuck on the ramp here. Like, the idea of removing these rocks just here is that instead of passing through this section here, and if the Terran is looking to attack into you, you don't want to be caught in this very small space. So that's why we are just sort of removing the rocks there, and now Kreamy is going to have to get across and try and see what he can do at the third base again, because the hatchery has gone down. Meanwhile, on Kreamy's side of the map, we've got an Overlord blocking off this base with a little bit of creep. Kreamy's going to come across and see that the hatchery has gone down. It's only really just halfway done right now, so it's perhaps a little bit further behind than where you would normally expect. So I'm sure Kreamy is possibly wondering, he's sort of, you know, probably thinking, wow, you know, MightyKiwi is just very nonchalantly trying to take this third base here, and he's not too worried about what's going on. In fact, we may even lose the third base again. MightyKiwi transferring some drones down, forces a cancel, very nicely done by Kreamy. Loses one of the Banshees, but not to worry, he's killed off the third base like twice now, effectively. And has only really lost a few Hellions and a single Banshee, almost a second Banshee, but no. Just the single Banshee was the main cost of that third hatchery cancel there. So really nicely done, and this is giving Kreamy a lot of time to get all of his workers together. We've got 52 out on the map for him, 55 for his opponent. There are going to be 5 factories in operation very soon. 1-1 on the vehicle upgrades and also ship upgrades, just about done. And this is going to give Kreamy a lot of firepower here. Like, even just counting in the Banshees, these guys do a lot of damage when there's just those Roaches on the ground. So it's really good to see that Kreamy's just sort of preparing things for now. And I mean, this is you know, this is sort of a standard little setup here that you get to see from a from a Terran player who's doing a little bit of mech. You just try and set up a no-go zone, basically, like something like this. I've spoken about it a few times when it comes to playing mech against Zerg. You just sort of set up this zone here where the tanks are going to be covering all of this region here, and you know, as a Zerg player, you got to figure out, how am I going to deal with this? So what MightyKiwi is going to do here We've got some tech coming up back at home, the infestation pit, the hydralisk den, we've got all that stuff coming up, but he's going to try and buy some time by dropping in some roaches. It looks like these two overlords have just barely scraped through. There was an SCV scouting across, and this overlord getting a little bit too close for comfort here, dropping off a couple of roaches at the top of the cliff here, very nicely done. The natural base is also very exposed. We can see two more overlords coming across that direction, and now MightyKiwi is also going to head in here and try and do some work inside the main base. Of course, those factories are very exposed. If you could pick off those upgrades, that would be lovely for MightyKiwi. And he's also, well, he's getting a double drop inside the natural base. The SCVs are not being pulled. Kreamy, what is he doing here? These Banshees are getting a lot of work done. That's all well and good, but what are the rest of the units doing here? Now Kreamy finally evacuating some of these SCVs, but the damage is being done. 42 workers have been killed off by these roaches that have dropped inside. Where is... I'm not sure what the unit reaction is here from Kreamy. It's extremely late. I think he maybe was just trying to figure out which units to get across to defend this, but finally the roaches are going to be dealt with. Perhaps they may even escape if MightyKiwi is quick on the draw, and that he is. In fact, gets every single roach out in that attack. The roaches inside the main. Looks like they will go down, but they have taken out an armory with them, and I mean, that's pretty good in and of itself. Like, killing off 46 workers is damn good, but I mean, also killing off that armory puts Kreamy back a little bit, just in terms of his timings of things like that. It can be quite frustrating when you sort of desync the upgrades there as a mech Terran play, because you like to have two. It's good to have everything nicely synced up. I mean, your tanks do like a plethora of damage once they have their 2-2 upgrades, and I mean they can tank quite a lot of damage as well when they've got that extra little bit of plating. So it's a little bit frustrating to lose that second armory there, especially when it was pretty much halfway done with the +2 upgrade. So Kreamy has to be very, very careful with what he does from here. I mean, he may even lose some more workers down here. 2 of these mules that have dropped down are now gone out of the fight. But the thing is, what has MightyKiwi been doing back at home? Of course, you can do all the harassment that you want. If you're not macroing and preparing tech back at home, then you can be in all sorts of strife. And it looks like we have gotten a lot of roaches and hydras back up and running. He's going to move them through the middle of the map. One thing that is a little bit lacking is this creep spread here from MightyKiwi. Just a little bit behind this. I know he has been harassing a lot and trying to get his 4th base up and was dealing with Banshees that were harassing that. But we still would love to see some more creep spread pushing out through the middle. It's just a little bit unfortunate that he hasn't been able to get across there. Now, just looking at this attack that MightyKiwi looks to be going for right here, we've got a fair amount of hydras. It's not like a huge amount. It's 17 and 27 roaches, but it's still something that can pack a punch. And in fact, he is going to load up. Wow. I'm not too sure about this. If he wants to push in here and try and get along on top of all these units, that may not work out too well for him. The Hydras will get annihilated by the Hellbats. You've got the tanks that, of course, do that massive splash damage against the Roaches as well. 60 damage versus armored targets. And here we go. MightyKiwi is going for it. He wants to come across and try and drop in towards the Hellbat and tank line. Perhaps not the best idea. The intentions, I understand what he's doing. He's trying to just really trade some of this army, but I mean, he can't trade something like that when he doesn't have the economy back at home. A lot of the time, like as we see the Overlords retreating it, a lot of the time when a Zerg player is free to trade like that, it's because they have a fantastic economy back at home. But with 64 workers and only the 3 bases, no 4th base up and running, we need the 4th base gas, and possibly even a 5th base at this point. MightyKiwi is just sort of, I don't know, that just sort of felt like a large waste. It was a little bit of an ill-fated move to just try and push in on top of all of this metal army that has been set up by Kreamy. A lot of tanks, a lot of Hellbats, and I mean, look at the supply count. We've got MightyKiwi down at 123 supply, just resupplying himself right now, getting his +3 upgrades on the way. Vipers have been added to the field. These guys can be a huge key when it comes to defeating a mech army. If you get some good abducts on things like tanks, maybe a Thor or 2 as well, and get those blinding clouds down in particular on top of the large groups of tanks that will be sieged up, then you can certainly turn a battle that could have certainly gone the other way. So MightyKiwi will be probably looking for something like that. We're still waiting for a little bit on that creep spread as well. I'm a little bit surprised that his creep spread is a little bit lacking at the moment. Like, I mean, a lot of the other games that I have of MightyKiwi, he's very, very good with creep spread, favoring 6 queens sometimes even to make sure that he does get a huge proportion of creep spread out. So a little bit surprised that we have that sort of lackluster creep spread at the moment, but not to worry. But one thing that he is going to be worried about is the fact that he has now lost the attempted 5th base, but his 4th is just about to be finished up here. And it looks as if Kreamy may be preparing to move out to take his 4th base. So we're talking about the map and the way the map is sort of structured in terms of movement around. Now, as you can see, the 4th base is generally going to be this one here. So what you'll see is the command center come across. Sometimes people will put a planetary fortress. Oh, sorry. Well, you can't really put it there, but they'll put a planetary fortress like somewhere over here and maybe across on this side. Because of the exposure of this base, you can have trouble with people pushing in from multiple sides. Of course, Mutas can come from the dead space there as well. But Kreamy is now going to push out. He's 192 supply, plus 3 to upgrades have been finished up as well. Some tanks have been caught out in the middle. A little bit unfortunate there for Kreamy to lose some of those tanks, but he's at 195 supply. A couple of Thors, some Hellbats on the way. Ravens are also coming through. There is no blue flame, keep in mind. I'm a little bit surprised about that. You know, normally if you're going to add a lot of Hellbats to your mixture like this, you normally would... Sorry, you don't have to, but I mean, it is a good idea at some point to add in Blue Flame, and I mean, this would be really helpful here. But the tanks have sieged up, they're in a very large cluster, a couple of wonderful Blinding Clouds go down, locking out those tanks from the battle, and this is a point where as a Terran, you're kind of wondering, oh, maybe that was a bad idea to push out at this point. But with that efficiency of some of the tanks at the back, as we can see, blistering damage being done to MightyKiwi, and he is forced to retreat right now. His plus 3 to weapons only just kicking in. His carapace is very far behind. Plus 1 is only just kicking in now. But, I mean, for MightyKiwi, he's killed off a lot of Kreamy's army. Killed off a couple of Thors there, I believe. Also quite a few of those tanks as well. As we can see, 14 tanks have been killed off this entire game. So that is quite good. Not to mention, a small factor there was also killing off those Ravens. The 2 Ravens that were moving forwards did not get much sort of... They don't really contribute too much, but we do have a couple more now starting to come through. We saw a little bit earlier that more starports have been added in for Kreamy, so he is going to add in some more Ravens very soon. We'll get an Abduct or 2. 1, 2, 3. Going to kill off 3 of those tanks. Nicely done by MightyKiwi, spreading out some of his units, looking to push in here and possibly take out this 4th base if he can. He needs to be very careful with the approach to this position because there are a bunch of tanks. Some of them are sieged up, one is just off to the side in Pong Pong mode, and it looks like Kreamy will hold firm for now, adding in some more Banshees. Rather intrigued by that particular decision there, and I'm also intrigued about this decision to add in some more Roaches. MightyKiwi, I'm not sure how this one's going to go for him, but he has set up a 5th base down at the sort of the bottom inner portion here, and Kreamy is now going to be up to his 4th base as well. He needs this gas to come in. Once you get the 7th and 8th gas coming in, that means you can start really cranking out those Ravens. It means you can also look at putting down the fusion core, the fusion reactor, for getting your battle cruisers out. So these are all some really important things to sort of transition as you move into mid to late game as a meching Terran player. There are those planetary fortresses I was talking about, just sort of pushing them off to the side. Kreamy just double checking some of these bases here. Is just wanting to look in the corners to make sure that his opponent hasn't picked up a sneaky base or something like that. But we can see that some Roaches will be here to defend against these Hellions. Looks like these guys will not be too long for this world here. Just coming across, looking to roast up a drone or 2. Does he get one? No. But he does confirm that the base is there. And I mean, these Banshees have also done a decent amount of work up at the top, making sure that this base is not here. Also checking the corners as well. Very important to do this kind of stuff. So Kreamy now setting up some extra command centers. We would assume that these are going to be planetary fortresses at the front. This one doesn't have to be, but it is possible that it will be. And I mean, you know, with the bank that Kreamy is starting to pick up in minerals, he can throw down a huge amount of command centers. And what you want to do is you want to switch those command centers into the orbital commands, then start lowering your worker count. Kreamy right now is sitting at 88 SCVs, which is, you know, a little bit more than you would normally expect at this point. But I mean, possibly within the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, once it gets the orbital command count a little bit higher, he's going to drop down the SCV count, just use the mules for mining, and then he would be all good to go with a much larger army contingent, which we will, we'll start to see in the army supply graph. It'll start to really peak the way of the Terran player, given the efficiency of that army and the power that it possesses. It starts to get very scary during the sort of, I guess, past the 35-minute mark is when that normally starts to happen. So Kreamy just starting to really move into that late game here as we start to see he's adding in those extra command centers as well. For MightyKiwi, would like to see him picking up, he's got a lot of gas, but I mean, you've got to be careful with the banking situation here. Of course, as we can see, wow, this Banshee does get a kill on the hatchery. They're very lucky to get that one done. A couple of spine crawlers are just going up now as well. Kreamy going to have to back out for now, but MightyKiwi just looking at his particular tech at this stage. What have we got out on the field? We've got a lot of roaches. We've got a couple of hydras. The upgrades right now, not too bad. We're waiting for Carapace. I'm a little bit surprised that he's so far behind on that. But as we can see, he's having to deal with all these little spot fires around the map, clearing out the bases to make sure that Kreamy does not establish a 5th base. A mech Terran on 5 bases is remarkably scary, guys. Never underestimate that. It just means they can go haywire with building up battle cruisers and ravens and that sort of stuff. And I mean, once you get sort of past the sort of 12 to 15 Raven count, that's when things start to get really far out of control for a Zerg player. So MightyKiwi is his natural, his 3rd base, getting, well, the 3rd's still okay actually, as we can see, but the 4th is still mining quite nicely. Got to get a lot of minerals and prepare for what may be a large switch. MightyKiwi, he does do a lot of really big switches when he's playing, particularly in ZVP and ZVT. So we'd not be surprised if he's going to be preparing something very soon. But as we can see, +2 to Carapace still on the way. I would really like to see, has he got, we don't have a Spire up. I'm a little bit surprised we don't have a Spire. The general sort of theory, from what I understand, when you're trying to deal with a mech player, is that you really do want to get to Broodlords as quickly as you can, so that you can try and use up some of the shots of the tanks, make the tanks hit each other when they're shooting at those broodlings, and also be using swarm posts and that kind of stuff. But we've seen a little bit more of a non-traditional kind of style here from MightyKiwi. You don't necessarily have to get in there and make like 90 Broodlords or 90 swarm hosts like some people will do, because both of those units can be very, very easily counted. And you've got your Ravens can drop Hunter Seeker missiles on swarm hosts. You've got Vikings, and of course even Hunter Seekers for Broodlords as well. So you have to play out this weird sort of little bit of a weird kind of tension game where you have to get the correct tech prepared, be patient with it, but not too patient. It's a very Goldilocks kind of situation playing against mech like this. And I mean, one thing that MightyKiwi is now starting to do is get everything prepared, setting up a lot of static defense at the bases, making sure that he does have a mobile force out on the map, trying to just snipe units, snipe buildings wherever he can, but not overcommitting to it. You don't want to go too crazy on like a massive roach hydra count. So it is good to see that he is going about things this way. Would like to see a little bit more creep spread through the mid, perhaps setting up some more static defenses in this region here, or possibly if he can, there you go, putting that creep spread out just as I mentioned it, but possibly even setting up some more static D just on the sides here of this little region so you can cover the attack paths that the Terran might want to come through. And then you can throw down some locusts on the ground. They will be, some swarm hosts on the ground. They will use up the tank shots, but wow, big battle now coming in. Hunter Seeker missiles popping out for Kreamy, and he does a decent amount of damage, but there are still some roaches and hydras that he has to deal with. Some tanks get slaughtered by the roaches and hydras that are left over, and MightyKiwi will be forced to back off, but I mean, he has still dealt a lot of damage there, but he's got to be thinking at this point, like, I mean, you've got to be wondering, all right, where are all the Ravens? When are the battle cruisers going to start to come out, etc., etc. And I mean, Kreamy is starting to move to that point. We've now got some extra, I would assume these are going to be orbital commands at this point. He's going to look to try and take this 5th base up the top here as well. We did have the 5th down at the bottom left-hand side being taken, but that has been removed from the position just for the moment here. But MightyKiwi now starting to move the creep spread out a little bit further through the middle of the map. I do like to see this, as I mentioned. Some static D would not go astray in this position here. But there is the Great Aspire as we look to possibly move up to the Broodlords to make sure that he does have some kind of endgame presence here. And I mean, you know, the thing is, we're approaching like the 35-minute mark when I mentioned how, you know, mech starts to just get scarier and scarier as the Raven count increases. The Ravens currently for Kreamy sitting at 5 is a lot lower than we normally would expect, but he did lose a couple in the middle. We had a battle just over here, and he did lose a few, but I mean, sooner or later, he is going to have to start increasing that. And as I said, once you get above 15 or so, those guys start to become a huge pain in the butt. So MightyKiwi is going to have to be prepared for that kind of thing coming along. I'm still not sure how I feel about resupplying with more Hydras and Roaches. I mean, as we said, it's good to have a mobile force out on the map to be able to snipe down buildings and units, but eventually, as we can see, Kreamy, all Kreamy is doing in the middle is now starting to take control of this position, starting to leapfrog the tanks up. He's starting to get a few more planetary fortresses in the middle here. This is the beautiful thing about playing this style. If you're playing very slow and methodically, you can use the planetary fortresses to set up your defense because they're free supply, or sorry, they're free defense because they don't cost you any supply. You can start investing more in Ravens instead of having to, you know, drop some more supply on tanks and things like that. And it just means that you can start to control much more space on the map. And you know, as time goes on, when the gas count units of Kreamy really start to push up, when we get all of these Ravens out, it's going to really start to matter that you control a lot of space. So MightyKiwi starting to, well, again, we're still sticking with this ground army of Hydras and Roaches for the moment. Creep Spread is starting to push forwards. We'd love to see some more static defense in the middle here as well. Perhaps a connecting set of tumors here just coming up towards the, what is that, like the 6th base up at the top right hand side here as well. Possibly even looking towards taking another base up in the top right corner, but does have a small issue coming in to deal some damage here. It looks like Kreamy wants to perhaps get to the high ground there, dropping down an auto turret, looking to find... are we going to lose one of the Ravens? No, we don't. Okay. So I thought we were going to lose one of the Ravens, but he does drop down a couple of auto turrets up the top. And this is the thing about this kind of mech, this turtle mech play, is that it's a very efficient kind of way to play the game. And I mean, as slow and as dull as it can be sometimes, as I'm sure, you know, I've had people commenting on videos before, you know, this is really boring, boring kind of style. How can people play like this? Blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you know, it's just a way of the world that you can sort of play like this kind of style where it's a little bit slower. You have to be very careful, and you can eventually just eke out little bits of energy here. Use some of the energy on the Ravens to drop down Hunter Seekers. You can regenerate the energy to get you know, your point defense drones and your auto turrets as well. So it's just a little bit of a slowly but surely kind of strategy, is this slow mech style here that Kreamy is utilizing. So he's now starting to... He's lost most of the mining on his initial set of bases here. 1, 2, 3 are all done. The 4th base is just about done as well. We can see the fusion... Did I call it the fusion reactor? I wish it was a fusion reactor. Could you imagine like making double battle cruisers at a time? That'd be nuts. But Kreamy looking to come in here, sends in a few Locusts to tank at the front. Roach is also pushing forwards. Hydras, I'm not sure how much, like, whether this was the most efficient attack, but either way, he's killed off the command center. May kill off a tank there as well. In fact, gets both of the tanks really nicely done by MightyKiwi there. So we start to see that the leapfrogging tanks are now pushing their way into the middle of the map, and I'm just a little bit worried because MightyKiwi's starting to pick up some static defense. We've got these Locusts that are here as well. Sorry, the Swarm Hosts that are here. I keep interchanging the names of those two guys, I'm sorry. But we've got Swarm Hosts sending out the Locusts now. But meanwhile, some of the Swarm Hosts decide that they want to get into battle as well. But this is starting... I just feel like you got to be careful with this kind of, this, you know, leapfrogging push out here. I would rather sort of see a few more Ravens being thrown into the mix than a large amount of tanks. As you can see, they can get killed off very quickly. The Ravens are able to escape. They cannot be shot by the Locusts. You've just got to be careful about these Spore Crawlers. And if you throw out a point defense drone, then your Spore Crawler does not do anything because it gets soaked up by the PDD. So I don't know, I'm just a little bit worried about these tanks sort of moving out here like this. It's just sort of a dangerous maneuver here from Kreamy. But I mean, he's now looking to set up another base down at the bottom left-hand side. We've got a command center that's set up here. We'll pass by one of the hatcheries that MightyKiwi has, and I wonder if MightyKiwi saw that. I would hope that he did. All he'd need to do is send a few roaches down to the bottom left side of the map, and that would be it. But Kreamy continuing to persist here, having to use some of his energy on the point defense drones to soak up the locust shots, but he does have a lot of Ravens now starting to piece together. 10 Ravens out of the map. There are 18 tanks, 13 Vikings as well for air protection, and it looks as if, well, MightyKiwi sort of suckered into an attack there, but does not really get anything done. But Kreamy, I'm just kind of worried because he still has not been able to set up this base. We do have a nice, you know, a fortified position starting to move through the middle of the map, but is it going to be enough? Because MightyKiwi has all the bases that he wants at the moment. He's got, I would expect him to start looking to take these ones up at the top right-hand side as well. But adding in a Baneling Nest, I think that's a buffet building, actually, as is this Evo chamber here. It's looking to push forwards here. The Locust coming across. They do get some of the tanks on the way through. They were abducted by the Vipers. Very nicely done there by MightyKiwi, and the tanks are now slowly starting to push up, and this is starting... I'm really worried about some of these unit choices here for Kreamy. We've got a few roaches have pushed their way forwards towards the bottom left-hand side base here of Kreamy. That attempted 5th has... Oh, sorry, that's an attempted 4th, is it? Yeah, it is. That's the attempted 4th base. Okay. Roaches now burrowing down. Kreamy having to try and deal with all these roaches with simply SCVs. Where is that Raven there? I know there is a Raven out on the map. This Raven could be coming across to help out, but unfortunately may have just forgotten about that one for the moment. So Kreamy in a little bit of trouble down here at this base. The roaches will not be able to kill off the planetary if it's repaired. However, is he going to notice in time? Because it looks as if... there you go. Alright. Does notice in time. A little bit of Burrow Micro there from MightyKiwi to try and keep them alive. Some Hellions will be coming through to try and roast up those the roaches before they can get any more damage done. But Kreamy, I mean, still producing a few tanks. We're not looking towards Ravens or battlecruisers or anything like that. And we're starting to really run low on resources at this point. Of course, we don't have much gas coming in from this base, and all of these ones inside the third, the main, and the natural have all been mined out. So Kreamy is, well, he's got these Hellbats here. They're going to get rid of everything that was left over. Could possibly push into this base as well. But I'm just sort of worried about the composition mixture here because of the lack of Ravens. There's 9 Ravens left over now. And the thing is, right, the reason why I'm a little bit concerned about this is because, like, a lot of the time when people are playing a Turtle Terran, what they'll do is instead of having the tanks just, the tanks sort of just pushing up like this, just leapfrogging, they do a lot of damage and they do take out Locusts, but every now and then a shot will get through and it'll start to wear down these tanks. You can see that some of these guys are starting to get low on health, and now as the Locusts push through, eventually they will get a few shots off. So what Kreamy is having to do is having to put all these point defense drones down. So, you know, well, that's a magnificent drawing there. But he's having to use energy on the point defense drones instead of using them on dropping down Hunter Seekers to clear out those swarm hosts. So that's why I'm a little bit worried about this. Perhaps even putting a planetary here would be a great idea to sort of soak up some of the damage for those tanks. But I mean, you know, we'll have to see as time goes on because Kreamy is starting to run out of gas, and I'm sure as everyone would have guessed by now, when you start to run out of gas, you start to run out of mech units because they do cost quite a lot. But Kreamy's going to do what he can with some of these mineral units up here. The Hellions now just driving through, doing a little bit of a drive-by at that 5th base, just taking out a couple of the drones, but I'm sure from MightyKiwi's perspective, it doesn't really matter if he loses some of these drones right now. Getting rid of the gas drones there is always nice, but he's going to lose these Hellions eventually. They're looking to see if they can get some more damage done, but this base will be mined out. Yeah, he's going to have to boogie on out of there. But we're still just sort of waiting for Kreamy to... This is the problem with the position that he's sort of dug himself into now, is that without battlecruisers, you don't have a long-range way of dealing with static defense. You don't have a way of easily cleaning up these swarm hosts. Without Ravens, you don't have a way of dropping down the Hunter Seekers. You'll eventually have to use all of your energy on point defense drones to try and protect the tanks. But now, as whoop, there you go. That's what I'm looking for right there. That is exactly what we're talking about, is using the Hunter Seekers to try and kill off some of the swarm hosts. And that's exactly what you want to be doing at this stage. But unfortunately, because the Raven count is very low, we're not able to do that as much, and because these tanks are constantly needing protection here, it is starting to become a real issue here for Kreamy to be able to even push forwards. So does have some Banshees that are looking to come across. They may be... What's the plan here? Okay, they're coming in at this angle, trying to avoid the Spore Crawlers that are there. But, I mean, there's some decently positioned Spore Crawlers from MightyKiwi, so he should be okay, I think. As, well, there you go. Finds a sweet spot, is able to kill off some of the drones. MightyKiwi also putting a little bit of pressure on himself. Would love to see him maybe moving into this little spot just over here so that you can fire on those, the SCVs in the mineral line, but... having to use some of the roaches there. More roaches now coming through. They probably will be looking to make a transition around the back of the mineral line, but still no fourth base for Kreamy. Still has not been able to make his way across here, and this is another reason why this particular push through the middle has kind of worried me, because it's all well and good to be sort of be pushing up this way and sort of just coming to protect this position over here, but in this center section, all that you're really gaining is protecting this base down here. So, I don't know, I'm kind of just a little bit, I'm a little bit confused about what the tactic is here from Kreamy, but now as we see, Ravens being pulled back into the flood of Hydras there, taking out a couple of the Ravens, and the Raven count has now been reduced quite a lot. The unit kill tally has gone all the way to Kreamy because of killing off all of these locusts and stuff like. Hang on, do they count? Oh, my bad, they don't actually count. But he's been killing off a huge amount of these units here. But the problem is that his army count is starting to dwindle. 113 supply here for Kreamy. He's really starting to wear out the rest of his minerals and the gas that he has obtained, but he has finally been able to pick up the 5th and the 6th base down here at the bottom left-hand side of the map. So as long as he can keep these up and get the gas coming in, he can keep himself in the game. Some Hellbats are now wandering across to one of MightyKiwi's last mining bases at this point. This is actually interesting to consider. MightyKiwi has also he's starting to run low. We've got a little bit of gas still coming in from this base over here. This one's still mining quite fine, and we can probably assume that he'll get this one at the side at one point there as well. But he is going to lose quite a lot of these drones, now falling down to 29, 28, 27 drones right now. Looks like the rest of these are going to be burnt alive as well. Burrowing for the moment, it looks as if will MightyKiwi will he be able to save some of these drones? It looks like the answer will be a yes. Finally unburrowing them, getting them back to work. Needs to start bringing in some more minerals as well. But all of the locusts starting to push forwards. They're starting to have an effect on the tanks. You can see the tank count is now down to 7. Going down to possibly 6 and 5 and 4 in a minute here. Locusts will be worn out for the moment, but there will be more. That's the thing. There will be more. They're always continually coming, these locusts here from the swarm posts, and Kreamy doing his best to try and kill off what he can, but I mean, wait, is it? Oh, the Spore Crawler can't help there. So an Overseer comes across, the Banshees are going to be shot down, 1, maybe 2. Does he escape with the Banshees here? It looks like it will be a yes. 2 of them will escape for now. But I'm starting to feel like Kreamy is having to fall back. His position is starting to be overrun by all of these locusts that are constantly pushing forwards, producing some tanks right now. The Raven count is now down to just 7 at this point. He's got a couple more that just popped out. And the unit count, as we can see from Kreamy, is really starting to fall down now as his gas count is really, really low. We don't have these efficient sort of units at the late game. Battlecruisers and Ravens are not really in there in higher numbers. So he's starting to lose some of that efficiency. MightyKiwi, perhaps sensing that there is some blood in the water, is now starting to maneuver himself around, maybe looking to take out this base at the bottom left-hand side here. Yeah, he does know that that's there. Just sort of maneuvering some of the locusts, some of the swarm posts around, is going to send them across. I don't think he can reach that from there. No, he can't. Can't actually reach that. What I would like to see perhaps from MightyKiwi, move like, 6 or 7 of them just down here, and then continue to send the rest of the locusts into this position here to occupy the tanks and the Hellbats and all those cool things in there. There you go. Does send in some. The others are... I don't know what they're up to. These locusts will push forwards. 3-3 on their upgrades, of course. We have reached that sort of peak stage where all the upgrades are basically done and both the players are just trying to trade as best as they can. But the Vipers are still out on the field. We've got these great support units. We've also got some Queens here for transfusers. So there's a lot of energy efficiency here from MightyKiwi, along with the fact that you've got these constant locusts coming out. it means that he has these really efficient units and is constantly able to trade with Kreamy because of the lack of ravens. So we can see now that this position has been abandoned. A couple of Hellions are now working their way up towards the top base here. There are some drones that have burrowed. There were a few more Hellion attacks that went down there, and there will be some spine crawlers going up to try and defend it, but I don't think they're going to do too much, as Kreamy now pushing in with these Hellbats there. Some of the Swarm hosts have just moved over. The Conga line has just slightly adjusted. Wow, the Orbital Command, 25 health left over. That's just going to burn down before the Locusts are able to finish it off. And there you go. 1, 2, 3. Down it goes. And the Hairdryer pops out as a sign of perhaps one of Kreamy's last bastions of hope here. The bottom left-hand side is now going to be in a little bit of trouble. Only need like a couple of the Swarm hosts to move over there, and I think you will be able to kill that off eventually. Or perhaps send in these Hydras that are also available. But Kreamy, I mean, kind of worried. I'm not actually sure what you can do from this point. A hatchery going down just over on the top right-hand side. We'll probably see this extra base as well. Drones are going to be transferring over. We still have the drone count up at, well, it's at 31, which is, it's kind of a weird situation because you're like, wow, that's so low, but at this stage, like, having the drone count at 31 isn't actually too bad. Like, you would probably want to increase it at least to 40 or 50 or so, but, I mean, it's going to be very difficult there to get that going, but it looks like the Ravens have been killed off. Only 2 of them are left over. The Vipers have been doing some wonderful work abducting some of the units and just bringing them into harm's way and letting them be killed off. Would love an abduct on that Banshee? No, not going to get it in time, but the Banshee does escape. 2 Banshees left over, alongside 9 tanks, 9 Vikings, or in fact 11 Vikings, and of course those 2 Ravens we mentioned. But yeah, this is pretty much done, I would say. Just having a little bit of lag there, these 2 guys, during the actual live game. But MightyKiwi has been really persistent. He's transitioned relatively well. He's just sort of done a little bit more of a passive kind of way of dealing with mech by just sort of sitting back, just sniping things where he can, keeping Kreamy off this what should have been a 4th base for a ridiculously long time. And as you can see, with the Swarm host constantly sending those waves of units across, they are eventually going to have their cake and eat it too very soon, because you know, once these tank shots start to be soaked up by all the Swarm hosts, the Locusts that are here, we're going to see an abduct or 2 every now and then. The Vikings will keep the Vipers back for the most part, but I mean, this is all sort of dead Terran turtling right now. Is kind of the situation that we're in. Roach is coming along to take out the Planetary down in the bottom left side. That is the end of that base, and I would say that is going to be the end of the game very soon. Kreamy now losing all of his SCVs down here. He's going to fall to around about, what's that, like 20 SCVs in just a second here. We've got some Hellbats protecting the base up to the top right, but I mean, it's not going to take much to burn that one down. There are some Hydras still out on the map. Tanks are going to be occupied by all the Locusts that are constantly pushing through. And speaking of which, down go most of those tanks, just saved by the bell. Locusts have to head home from school right now, but they will be back as MightyKiwi continually being very on the spot with all of his macro, making sure that he is not in a too sort of unfathomable position right now, but has been constantly under aggression, under harassment, sorry, by Kreamy. Looks like this base may be picked off, but the Hydras come across and save the day. We'll be looking to kill off those Banshees. If Kreamy can escape with those, that'd be quite nice, but it looks like the Hydras may have the last laugh. A couple more shots and they will be gone. Down goes 1, down goes 2. Hellbats coming across. We see some splits there from MightyKiwi as he attempts to keep those Hydras alive. Very nicely done. But now the Hydras should be able to march on through into this base and take this one out, and thus finally finish off the game here in what has been an hour-long slugfest between these 2 players. As I mentioned, it's just kind of looking at the way that Kreamy played this one out, just sort of seemed like it was just a little bit, it lacked a little bit of that late game direction where you do have the Ravens and the BCs coming out, but I mean, he certainly gave it, he had some wonderful defense right at the start where he defended that the Roach Hydra drop early on in the piece, but now it looks like the last laugh will go to the Zerg MightyKiwi as he moves forwards with the Swarm Host, going to send out that probably one of the last few batches of Locusts to push forwards into this last remaining base here, this last fortification of Kreamy. There are a lot of planetaries, I suppose, but eventually they are going to go down. Some Abducts coming out, taking out a lot of those Vikings that are there. The Spore Crawlers that come across and reburrow. Some Roaches and Queens on the ground are going to be here for a little bit of ground defense, but I mean, eventually, this is the thing, eventually, a little bit of an interesting sort of game philosophy there when it comes to Swarm Hosts, is eventually they'll be able to kill everything off, and there is a GG. Kreamy taps out. A little bit too much in the end there for our Terran player from FRAYA Academy. Obviously, it was a little bit of a longer game. I know it did go for quite a while. I hope you all have enjoyed and at least learned something as well. I mean, that's the thing when it comes to these longer games. There's always something to learn. Hopefully you have learned something. Please do share the video and, make sure you say hello to both these guys on Twitter as well. I'll catch you all next time. Here, as you can see, 47 damage to bio units and then the 34 damage against other standard targets. His storms have also been wonderful, just spreading them out across the battlefield, doing really, really nicely there. And for Minigun, he's been sticking with a much more